I'm in a set of fields called the Hedges, which is haze, as you know if you've watched this channel. It comes from the Old English hawan, or the French for hedge, haye, and they're obviously cognate words. And we don't get hedge directly from haze. It's probably from the Old English hedge, where you get the word hedge, but it's haran is means a hedged enclosure, and we have hedges. We have a hedge here today. Now the only problem is it's looking very suspicious because I'm seeing. I've never been able to identify elm very well, but I think it is elm. There's certainly one main species through here. But the theory for hedge dating suggests that every 110 years a new seedling flies in, perhaps a bird dropped it or the wind blew it in. So you get wild species in the hedge, increasing the diversity, which means we're able to, because it's a constant increase, we're able to give it a date. Now, we include roses, wild roses in that count, but not brambles. So I've counted 5 species. Luckily I'm able to see 30 yards of the hedge from this public footpath, and the equation is the number of species times 110, this is in the south of England, and then add 30 to the total to give you an age. So that's 505 species is 550 plus 30, 580. I don't think it's 580 years old. I think it's more. I think it's a hedging mix. I think it's been planted reasonably recently. So even though it has a really old medieval name, the Hedges, I don't think it is medieval. Now, because it's slap bang in the middle of a village, because of that, it is. It was always going to be doubtful to me. I just wanted to come here and show you a hay. It is interesting. There is archaeology here, but it's not the sort of archaeology for lone antiquarians with a camera. It's the sort of archaeology for people with spades. So I can't do very much. I can interpret, but I'm not going to do a massive amount. So for example, I can see an earthwork up there. Can you see the earthwork up there? Now that, I don't know whether or not there was a hedge or wall on top of that. They kept ploughing up against it and then forming an earthwork like that. I don't know whether it is agricultural or a defensive earthwork. We are slap bang in the middle of the village. There will often be a borough in a village. It's where we get the word borough from, after all. Hello, sweetheart. Hello. You're a noble beast, aren't you? Aren't you a noble beast? I'm in the parish of Cromhall, and that means the nook, the halch in Old English, and the cramba, or hook, or a bend, and there's a bend in in the stream down here, and so it's the nook of the bendy nook, basically. And I should be going into Tortworth, which is Tortworth worth, which means the enclosure of a man called Tortworth, an old English anglo-saxon. We know nothing about him. We really know nothing about any of these owners, but occasionally you do. You get a will or something. We shall explain who they are, and you know, who their parents were, and that helps you identify them. But we're interested not so much in dead Anglo-Saxons, but we're interested in what they handed down to us and how it affects the way we live today. And an awful lot of what I describe is gone completely. The agriculture is not the same. It's the same forces, the same restrictions are applied. But the technological solutions mean they can plough and sow wheat on downland and you know, land that is just you couldn't get oxen or horses to plough up. You can get a tractor to plough up. So it is, and to make a profit, you need 1,000 acres or more, probably a lot more than that. So it's the landscape has changed. So the people who live here in these villages, I don't mean to stereotype them, but they are not the farm workers and the squires and the cobblers and the candlestick makers of yesteryear. They're social workers, graphic designers, and retired people. And it is not. The countryside is now. I don't mean to. It sounds negative, but that's not really what I mean. I don't really mean it negatively, but the countryside is a dormitory for people to go and live, take part in economic matters elsewhere. Oh. This hedge has been laid. Can you see this along here? It's had its stems 3/4 of the way cut through, then bent down, and these new shoots come up. And what it means is that farm animals can't get through it. Likewise, anybody using this footpath, their animals can't get into the field. But it makes the barbed wire redundant, what it should do, but it's only been done once, and it hasn't been looked after, so it needed trimming. Probably these trees overhead have stopped the hedge developing. So look, it's really clear here. So that's traditional hedge laying, but I couldn't age it. What I don't have I've perused all of the field names around here, and I don't have an old field name that says hedge in it, or old form of hedge. And there is a dry stone wall here, along here, which is so clearly they've had a wall before that has become redundant in some sense, has fallen down, and so they've had to plant a hedge. So I think it's probably like 100 years old, something like that. I wouldn't think it'd be much more than that hedge. I don't have a Saxon charter for this little walk. What I have is the names on the Ordnance Survey map, the names on the tithe apportionment and the tithe maps, and what the English Place Name Society has published online. So all of this is available to you online. There is a matter of interpretation, even of such things as handwriting. So the English Place Name Society and the volunteers at Gloucestershire Archive, who've transcribed all the tithe apportionments, there is a discrepancy. I can't make my mind up who's made a mistake, but we'll go into that in a minute. So the tithe apportionment, what happened 200 years ago was that we started to modernise as a society. So for 1,000 years or more, farmers have paid 10% of their crop to the church, for the maintenance of the church. And that, of course, has been a social struggle. It's been part of the social struggle of non-conformist versus established church for a long, long time, since the Reformation. And I'm told that the Germans, in certain parts of Germany, still pay tithes, but we'd had enough. And so what they did was they surveyed all of the farmland in England. So all of that is recorded, so we know the 200-year-old field names. Now, some like Hayes, I did Hayes a minute ago, even in the early 19th century, which is 1840s, 1830s, 40s, when this was done, Hayes was no longer a modern English word. Nobody really knew what it meant. So that indicates that there are lots of field names that are older, really, really old, medieval names. And sometimes they accord with anglo-saxon names. So what I'm able to do is to take like records from like the 11th, 12th, 13th century, compare them to what's in the 1840s tithe map, and see if you can match them up. Anyway, we'll talk about that later on. But this stream here that I'm at, that I'm next to, is the Cromhall brook today, but in the tithe map it carries on through the park and then out the other side, and there's a couple of fields. Now this is where we don't know who's made a mistake with the records. So some of them say Bream and others say Bran, and if an R and an N next to each other, they can easily look like an M, can easily be mistranscribed. So what I had a look at was, I looked at the map, the tithe map, and handily, in this case in beautiful cursive writing, is what looks to me like Brearn, Brearn. Now it's going to be really hard. It would be easier to say this is the stream, the brook of the bream, which is a type of fish. That would have been really, really handy. Now, if I'd seen a field name in a Saxon charter that was called Barn, I would assume it meant burnt land, been cleared by burning. But it's a bit weird having a brook that has been burned. But to me, the handwriting on the tithe map, and it's in beautiful cursive, so it's at least 100 years old. That sort of, people don't normally have that sort of handwriting anymore. It looks more like Brearn. I'm finding it difficult to translate, so any ideas, put them in the comments below. But I think it is the burnt stream myself. But what we're able to do is, I think we as managed nosologists should be putting back those old traditional names, those authentic rooted names that have disappeared from the map, and put them back again. Now we've got two here, Bream and Brern, but that's near enough. Let somebody else sort it out. It's a nice little holloway, this. So what's happened is that the wheeled traffic, so that's everything since a lot of things since the Bronze Age, not before, and it's basically loosened up the soil and the rocks. Water's done the rest, and created a hollow. So the Iron Age castle just here, the landowner's made it quite clear he wants nobody in there. It's tri-vallate, which means it's got three sets of walls, fortifications, and which is pretty posh. Imagine if you were a peasant working for your Iron Age chieftain, and you show him the new ditch you've just dug, and he says, right, I want 2 more. You might be a tad annoyed. So, but it is, there's probably a religious component to Iron Age hill forts as well, much like there is there's a remnant of a religious component to the British Constitution. We have bishops in the House of Lords, and we have important people like fighter pilots and poets go in Westminster Abbey when they die. The king is defender of the faith. Theoretically, anyway, that's all beside the point. So there is talk in the record of a mosaic, Roman mosaic in the corner. There is a promontory part. So this is a hill fort which is on a ridge. It plummets one side and it falls away quite nicely to this side as well. Highly defensible. But there's a promontory part on looking down on the lake, which once upon a time would have been just the stream, the same stream we were talking about a minute ago, the Brern or the Bream, whatever you decide. And it's on those promontories you sometimes find what were once Iron Age temples that became Roman British. There is a transition between the beliefs of the Iron Age Celtic people and the Romanized people the same people that would Romanized later became part of the Roman state. So these stop being, if not political, military. They no longer being occupied as military forts. But they do seem to maintain Romano British religion. So at least half of that is going to be Iron Age beliefs that have made the transition into the new world of Romanitas. So there is a Roman settlement near Bath on Lansdowne that has a promontory, and there was a temple, an Iron Age Romano British temple. So there may well be, that might be going on here, overlooking the stream. So that shows that the stream, which is now a lake, but the stream was, certainly the valley was important. Militarily and politically, the Severn, which I can't see from here, but I suspect once you're up on top of the hill fort you can. Especially if all the trees have been cleared between here and there. I can see it with the drone, so I'm going to illustrate to you the perspective of what it's like to be overlooking the Severn. Now the Severn's probably about 4 miles away, but what this is there's not very much that's high up between here and the Severn, and so this is a really good place if you want to dominate the landscape around and the Severn. And there's also, before I go on to the Ridgeway, the Severn, we know from the Romano-British period that the Irish came up the River Severn and took slaves and just butchered and reeved the place, if such a word is allowed. Now these, so it would have been incredibly important to control it. It's the River Severn is a great river that gives you access into the heart of England, Britain at the time. Now, there are a couple of forts. There's Albury on Severn has a hill fort that's not on a hill. Well, it's on a tiny rise, and there's a proper Iron Age hill fort there. So they were guarding it quite close up. But if you just over there on that hill, over there, is the Ridgeway. Now it's not much of a Ridgeway here, but down towards Bristol it's known as the Old Ridgeway, and that road is very, very old, and it goes to Gloucester, and so it would have been important for the people who lived here, the Iron Age people, to dominate that road. So whoever lived here, whoever was in charge here, had overview of the Severn, had overview of the Ridgeway, had overview of that pretty valley, i.e. overview over religion, and also had overview of the nice ploughland down there. That's one of the reasons why you have military places that high up. You are dominating the people below you, and it's very defensible. It's got, it drops away here and it drops away over there. If you are a raiding party making your way up here, it will be a pain in the arse to run up here, and I'll be peppering you with javelins and slingshot while you're doing it. Then when you get close up here, bravely struggling against my fire, I retreat inside the walls and then just laugh at you. But today the Ridgeway is still important getting to Gloucester, but just over there is the M5. You might be able to see some traffic moving along it. That's the modern trunk roads of Britain, the motorway, 2-lane, 3-lane, not 2-lane, 3-lane highways, and right parallel to the Ridgeway. Now, how do we know that the Ridgeway? It is all along its length. It's still higher than the marshes around it. They're no longer marshes, but they were. So it is sort of a Ridgeway still, always been a Ridgeway. But how do we know they're ancient? How do we know they're pre-Roman? And the way that we know that is that we look to see it has a typology that where we have roads that we can date using archaeology, they also have the typology, and it tells us that where those circumstances are the case, i.e. you are high enough above water not to get your carts or your mules bogged down so you can move quickly, it automatically becomes an ancient road. People use it forever, and it fits that typology.